Welcome to Truckee Talks. I'm your host, Maya Schneider, and it's my pleasure to bring back Josh Susman. And this time, Josh, we're just going to talk about you and not all the other things you do.
Well, I'm not wearing any hats tonight.
That's
so.
right. Well, actually, it is a great pleasure to have you here, Josh. You're a former mayor, you're a current town council member, and you've been in town quite a long time. I thought it would be fun to bring you here and have you share a little bit of your story and how you came to Truckee.
Okay, a little storytelling time?
That's
okay.
right. That's right.
All right, and this will be broadcast throughout the nation, right?
This is family appropriate.
Family, okay.
That's
all right. PG?
PG,
okay.
PG-13 maybe. But.
All right. Well, thank you, Maya. It's a pleasure to be here. I found myself in Truckee about 21 years ago. And actually, my wife and I came through Truckee on our honeymoon. Jan and I were married down in Southern California. And she being Canadian, we went through Canada to Vancouver to visit family and friends that couldn't make it down to the wedding. And my cousin was living here, so I blame him. We came through here to visit him, and 6 months later we moved to Truckee after having only visited it one time.
Really? Now that's quite a move for honeymooners to make.
Well,
you had been living in Southern California.
I was living, going to school, working in Southern California. Jan was an undergrad at UCLA, and she was finishing up her undergrad work, and I was working a job that had a future but not real exciting, and we wanted to come to the mountains.
And here you are.
Get out of the city.
So what did you do when you first came to Truckee? 21 years ago, the town was a very different place to be.
The year-round population 21 years ago was about 6,500 people. And I say that most of the doubling that's occurred in town, or tripling almost, has been in the last 5 years, not incrementally over the last 20 years.
Yeah, that's true.
And we swelled to a whopping 15,000 people on a holiday weekend. So things are a little bit different. We rented a house at the top of Alder Creek in Tawadonna, up past the stables. We were the last house plowed. I mind you that 81, 82 was the worst winter in 100 years.
Right.
And that was my first full-time winter experience from a Southern California boy.
But it didn't make both of you tuck your tails between your legs and run back to Southern California.
Well, that's what didn't kill us, made us stronger.
Yeah, and the same can be said for raising a family together. You now have two lovely young boys.
Yes.
Or young men, I should say.
That's right, that's right. David is now 14 and Jonathan is 10. Getting back to the Truckee origins for a moment, I got here and I looked around and I said, well, gee, I'd much rather be fighting the snowplows and fighting the berms than worrying about getting a parking space or what logo I have on my shirt. And who would have thought 20 years later I'm worried about finding a parking place and what logo I have on my shirt.
Maybe it's time to move to Sierraville.
I don't know. I don't know. But yes, the boy bouncing around. The boys are great. David starts high school this year. Jonathan's in 5th grade, so the time is fleeting.
It does go by fast, doesn't it? And you've had, I would say, a series of what is very typical for residents here, a series of careers. Because the jobs here are so limited, people really have to create and make their own living, and you've done that in several ways. Yes,
it's been a challenge at times. Moved here in '81, and I was in sales, designing high-end bathrooms, kitchens, custom spas for a big store chain down in Southern California, family-owned chain, and moved here and looking for opportunities with 6,000 population, and even with the tourist base we had then. I went back into what I'm fairly known for, was the automotive. I had been out of that for countless years. That basically put me through college, the automotive. And then in my first career path, life, automotive was not part of that. So in order to find a foothold and stay in the community, I fell back in the automotive, which I did very well, and it did very well by me. I think did very well by the community for a long time. And in between there's been a real estate license, and there's been a number of other hats, but
a dive shop.
Dive shop in the auto garage.
Right.
Trying to further the passions and hobbies at the minimal expenses.
Well, that's always been the dilemma of people that move up here, I think, is getting paid for the things they love to do instead of doing something else to support what they love to do.
Well, that's my current mantra, is to figure out how to get paid for what I do, because I don't do enough of what I get paid for.
And tell us a little bit about what you do now that you do get paid for.
Well, I'm in financial services now, financial and business planning through insurance as a vehicle and some investment vehicles, and been very much involved with and enjoyed my time with Sierra Plan Giving Council, looking at planning on how it benefits the community and how people can give back through not only family protection, but also through tax savings.
So you scrubbed your fingernails, you found a white-collar job, but then, of course, your public service is another side, another dimension here.
Well, way back when, '87 was the infamous year when Kmart wanted to come to Truckee. And one of the things I realized early on, having moved here in '81, was that it was still a small enough town that an individual could make a difference. Not lost in the anonymity of a big city where I came from. And to get involved with the community was just the right thing to do, and it was an easy thing to do. And so I see the council and my commitment throughout the community and the other hats that I wear. Another epitaph is going to be going broke for working for nonprofits. But the town council has been very rewarding, and I've really enjoyed being in that role as part of the community.
Now you're in your second term on the town council.
You got to be careful what you wish for, because sometimes it might come true.
That's right. You did serve a year as mayor in 1999.
That's correct.
And you'll be coming around again if the fates align to be our
Well,
mayor.
as we have the rotational situation for the mayorship,
Right.
yes, I should be up in a couple of years.
All right. And how's that going for you, the town council? I mean, aside from the deliberations up on the dais, are you enjoying it?
Well, of course, we can't talk too much about it when there's more than two of us, but I don't get a lot of I don't get beat up a lot by the public, which is either they're not talking to me because they think they know where I'm coming from, or it's my validation that I'm doing something to the majority benefit of the community. Now, of course, that's not always true. They say that you're only right 51% of the time. I'd like to think that I'm right, at least 59% of the time. But
Maybe it's because you carry a gun. They just don't want to approach you.
Maybe that's it. That's it. Having an unlisted number helps too. No, I'm just kidding. I'm listed. But yeah, I enjoy it. It's rewarding, and I feel that I'm responsive to the community.
What did you like about being mayor?
In town, it's a little bit different because we're all members of the same community. But going out of town, it's nice to flaunt it and play with it. And the irony is going back to like high school friends and high school reunions, and saying, gee, whoever thought,
Most likely to be found in a flop house is suddenly passing out a card that
No, wait a
says
minute, whose
mayor.
interview is this? Yours or mine? Thanks a lot.
Touche.
But the other thing that's ironic is that, as you well know, for the rest of our life, we could use honorable as a prefix to our name, and so that's really scary.
That is very frightening, and then you think about the relative value of that term.
Right. But I enjoyed being the figurehead and representing the community, and knowing that, the face that I put forward in town and out of town was representative of our community, and I enjoyed working with that and playing with that and being respectful of that.
Well, speaking of playing, in all of your free time, you also were part of the startup for the railroad regulators. Talk a little bit about that for the folks that don't know who the regulators are.
Well, the railroad regulators was an outgrowth of, for years, Truckee has such a rich and colorful history that for years our events contracted with other reenactment groups throughout the state and Nevada to come in and add the local color as far as the Old West element of the community. And a gentleman, Dennis Cook, here in town, approached me in early 2000 and said, gee, other people are coming to town representing the town and its colorful cowboy history. Why don't we do that? And thus begat the railroad regulators. And it's been pretty amazing, just the response and the welcoming we've gotten from the community. We have fun. We do the safety demonstrations. We now have about over 30 participating members, plus other groups that join us from out of town. And the theater, the drama, just the escapism of it all, as well as the historical aspect of the community has just been really a lot of fun. So.
Well, it's fun to watch the regulators because you really pay attention to all of the aspects of the period. The language, the costume is very accurate for the history, and everybody adopts a personage.
Correct.
And has their own name. You're Chance Ledbetter.
Right. There's a good chance you won't walk away from this gunfight, or lead is better than talking. There actually was a Bud Ledbetter in Indian Territories that was a fairly well-known, successful lawman. But this basically, you either take a character from Hollywood or a character from history, and you just kind of run with it. And we try to look at the period of about 1860 to 1880, and the attire is important because people may not realize it, but if they see it correct, then you are educating them that when they see it Hollywood, that there is a difference. But it's a bunch of grown men growing up and playing cowboy, growing older but not growing up.
So when you're not being paid to provide financial advice to people, and you're not pondering things before you on the town council, and you're not running around in a regulator outfit, what else might you be found doing?
Well, hopefully spending some time with my family.
There you go.
Good answer.
Good plug, Jan. Yeah.
And the other passions I still have are the diving, which has not been much in the front lately. I did enjoy my annual experience with horses. The rodeo was a lot of fun, so I still get involved with the horses. So, just looking for one thing to do in the community or another, looking out for the bad guy, whoever that may be at the moment.
Well, let's talk about that from a forecasting perspective. You're now 2 years into your second term. What's next? What's next on the horizon for you?
Well, after spending 4 years learning about the council and learning about the roles and the jobs and the expectations and how to do the job, you're basically infinitely qualified to do nothing else but stay in politics. And I'm not losing that as a segue that I'm going to stay in politics. So that was the impetus for my second term, is to apply and share what I've learned and networked throughout the previous 4 years. I still have another year, maybe even a year and a half, to make a decision as far as whether or not there's any additional political aspiration in 2 years. The family would like to have me back. I still have enough other activities, I think, that keep me in the front and keep me involved in the community. So other than the fact that it's about 90 degrees outside this afternoon and we're under hot lights, it's
120 degrees inside the studio.
But 2 years from now, I don't know what the answer will be. Just like sitting on the dais and not knowing where your vote's going to be.
Right.
2 hours later, I don't know where I'm going to be 2 years from now.
Right, that's fair. It's also fair to say that there's a lot of conjecture, and there's nothing that our community loves better than just try forecasting the political wave in our community. But certainly a number of people have bantered your name about for supervisor for Nevada County. And
well, all I can say about the county supervisors, they put the fun back in dysfunctional. I mean,
it isn't a job you could pay me to do, it's true.
Well, you know, and the only thing that, as far as forecasting in reference to politics, I mean, Truckee is growing. And to be part of that process and trying to make the growth happen as responsibly as possible, and as inevitably as it may or may not be, I mean, that's something I think it's real important right now.
Do you find yourself compartmentalizing your decisions as a council member versus your beliefs or your wishes as an individual? And I'll give you an example. Perhaps there's something that you would approve as a council member because the law is mandated or dictated or what have you, but somewhere deep down in your heart you wish that Truckee was the Truckee of 1983 or 1975 or
1883.
Right, or 1883. Well, I hope not, but...
Well, it's true, and a wise man, in spite of being an attorney, once said to me when I was campaigning for council that when I came from my background of being involved with an interest group with Mountain Air Preservation Foundation and its foundation, when I got elected to the council, this individual said to me, it's real easy to be an advocate for one side of an issue, to be passionate, and I don't feel I've compromised any of my principles or my values since being on the dais, but you definitely have to look at a larger picture and take a lot more into consideration than having the freedom, the luxury, and the ability to have only one viewpoint.
Right.
And to be responsible to the people that elected me, I have to weigh that in the balance. And so there are times when, you know, I would like to see things different, but again, there are certain things that are mandated, as you said, that require us to work within a certain box, whereas people that are on the outside, and that's where I came from, lobbing grenades from one side of the dais to having to field the grenades from the other side of the dais, that there's different responsibilities that you accept when you become an elected official. And I wear that, I think, with integrity.
What do you think about the changes in Truckee for the last 21 years that you've been here? You've seen a lot of growth, as you said, really over double the population from when you first moved here. And I agree, we don't know necessarily, but from all the numbers and anecdotally, we can guess that the last 5 years have been the most growth that we've seen here.
Well, I think it's interesting, and I don't mean to do this as a plug, but I think that sometime down the road, there needs to be a Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life, of what this town would be like if it weren't for some of the interest groups out there doing what they do. You may not always agree with them philosophically, but in my heart of heart, if there weren't certain special interest groups out there, and Mountain Air Preservation Foundation is my background being one of them, this town would probably be where we are today growth-wise 10 years ago. So if we may not ever stop it, but we've definitely have looked at it with a lot more introspection, with a lot more clarity than what we did either prior to incorporation or even since incorporation.
Do you find that it's the special interest groups really on all sides of the spectrum that help you make your decisions in the final analysis on the dais? I mean, they're...
Sure. I mean, it all brings in different perspectives. I mean, you know, we go along the path, it doesn't matter what we're doing in our walks of life, with a frame of reference and a focus. And every now and then we need somebody else's eyes looking in from outside to help us look at things differently. So it's all those people, all those things, all that frame of reference and all that input that ultimately balances on what the decision is at the end of the day.
What do you enjoy most about elected office, about serving on the town council?
What is the rating of this show?
PG-13 for sure.
Well, as I said earlier, when I came to Truckee, I enjoyed the fact that it was still a small town and someone could make a difference. And anybody that says there isn't some ego involved, whether you're sitting up here for Truckee Talks or whether you're sitting behind the dais, that you're putting it out in front of, and not everybody wants to do that or can do that. And so I enjoy the attention at times, but I also enjoy the fact that we're making a difference. And if someone has a different view, I feel that I'm open to listen to it, but someone ultimately has to sift through all that stuff. And if you look at the candidate field in the past, perhaps, and look at the candidate field today, where we have emotional issues again, the reason why we haven't had a big turnover on our council is because, number one, no one wants to do it, and number two, we have been kind of complacent. Things haven't been as large in our life, in our backyard, if you will. And it's finally these projects that are starting to come before the town are starting to catalyze people to want to make that difference.
Yeah.
The same difference that I wanted to make back in '87 when I got involved with Mountain Area Preservation Foundation and ultimately on the council.
What were you thinking when you ran for town council? Do you think you had an agenda then and you've had to adjust it, or what were your hopes and aspirations?
Well, I was accused of having an agenda. I was accused of being a single issue land use person, and of course land use, as you well know, is a small fraction, the most perhaps impactful to the community, but the smallest fraction of what we deal with on the council. And with that regard, I don't think I had an agenda. Running for council the first time was not as difficult as it was hanging it out there for re-election, and then, oh God, going through the emotional, gee, what if the community doesn't accept me and want me the second time type of thing.
Yeah.
But
so if you never run again, you never have that question.
Yeah, well, you've done it once. But I should have worn my mic for council. But the agenda I had was just to see Truckee grow well, because I knew it was going to grow.
Right.
Planned intelligent growth, which was, back then the mission that we all worked for.
It's still ripe for it. If you look at the economy that Truckee manages to pull through, even in light of or in spite of the national economy and our state's economy, Truckee still manages to plow along fairly well. And our location on Highway 80, our proximity to the Bay Area, to Reno, and this beautiful site we're in, still is going to draw quite a number of people.
Yes,
to
it
the
is.
community.
Yeah, and we have been fortunate to be kind of insulated from the rest of the, like you said, the global economy. I mean, Sacramento's still waiting for a budget to be approved, and as Truckee has recently gone through its budget, I mean, we're looking at less than $200,000 perhaps potential impact to the town's $20 million odd budget with regard to the cuts that are being made in Sacramento. So I mean, we are very, very fortunate.
Yeah, but and still keeping an eye out on it. I asked you what you liked most about serving on the council. What do you like least about it? The time.
I mean, the time intrusion. I mean, there are times when, you all of a sudden look at my watch and go, gee, we've got 3 meetings this week instead of 1 a month or 2 a month. The time is a strong commitment. I mean, it's a big commitment. There's not a lot I dislike about it. Again, there are times when have felt hurt by certain comments and things in the community, but that's all part of the job. I don't take it personally. It's the job, it's not the person. But I'd say the time away from family, the dedication and commitment time is probably what I like least about it. But again, if I didn't want that, I wouldn't have ran for re-election or run the first time.
That's right. We have a slate of candidates. We now know we have 9 people that have filed to run for town council, and without falling off the cliff into the realm of the political necessarily, if there were any advice you could give to all 9 candidates running for town council, what would that advice be?
Be careful and considerate of your family. And if you have a boss, make sure that they be aware of that. Make sure you have lots of sick days and lots of vacation times. And it's interesting as the dynamic changes on the council as far as who picks up the committee assignments. I mean, people look at us sitting up there perhaps twice a month and figure, oh, anybody can do that. Look, Josh is doing it, I can do that.
Right.
But besides that, they don't look at all the committee work that we have to do behind the scenes,
Right.
the out-of-town meetings. The mayorship does add a little bit more.
Keep
Thank
going.
you.
Just wanted to get you
The
straight.
the mayorship does add more time and
Yes.
commitment, and
Yeah.
you can choose not to be in that rotation when your time comes. If we still do it that way when the time comes, but it's a really strong commitment, and anybody that has an employer or has a family has to be very aware of the commitment.
Very mindful of that.
Yes.
Yeah. David and Jonathan, if they had one piece of advice to give to the candidates, what do you think that would be?
Don't run. Stay at home more.
Stay at home more.
Yeah, it's been a matter of just trying to balance the time with the family. The council meetings are in the evenings. Yes, there's some time away from family, but I try to keep that separate from the council activities, and it's almost more impactful with Jan and I because of the evening time as opposed to the kid time. But
the flip side of that is that you're also setting an example, a role for your sons on community service and on being involved.
and hopefully their community services by choice.
Yes, not sentenced to it, as
Right,
it
as
were.
I have a teenager going to high school, I think about those things.
Oh, I'm sure they'll be just as good as you were in high school, Josh.
That's what I'm afraid of. Thanks for the setup.
Exactly. Well, Josh, it's been a real pleasure having you here on the show.
It's been my pleasure.
It's nice to have the community get to know you a little bit better, certainly all of the new folks in town, get to know some of our council members. I'd like to have the rest of them on the show as this year progresses. We'll try to do that.
Well, that's great. That's great. And it's nice to see you from this, across, without seeing across from the dais. too.
That's right, not all the way at the far end of the
Right,
dais.
at the far left of the dais. Oh, no, that's me at the far left. It's been a lot of fun.
Josh, thank you for being on the show.
All right, Maya.
Again, we've been visiting with Josh Susman, Town Council Member and former Mayor for the town of Truckee, and we'll be right back with upcoming events in the region. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Truckee Talks, and now we have a peek for you for upcoming events in and around our region for this week, the week of Wednesday, August 14th. The Lake Tahoe Shakespeare Festival at Sand Harbor is wrapping up its month-long run this week. The festival is celebrating its 30th season with 2 comedies, The Taming of the Shrew and The Twelfth Night. This is a wonderful event. It's held in a beautiful setting, and if you've never been before, you need to go. I went to 12th Night this year and it was wonderful. Call 1-800-747-4697 for tickets and information. On August 15th, the Lake Tahoe Music Festival continues with The Butterfly Tree with Maestro Kent Nagano and the Berkeley Symphony Orchestra. This will be held at the resort at Squaw Creek, so bring low back chairs, picnics and blankets, and enjoy. For details, call 581-3101. August 17th and 18th is the Multiple Sclerosis Society's 2002 Tour Tahoe. Riders can choose to ride 1 or 2 days on their bikes and raise money to support multiple sclerosis research and programs. Call 775-329-7180 for information. August 17th, the Lake Tahoe Music Festival brings An American in Paris to Donner Lake. Maestro Kent Nagano returns with the Berkeley Symphony Orchestra for an evening under the stars. Call 581-1184 for more information. And for you builders out there, the U.S. Green Building Council Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design is conducting a full-day workshop for professionals to increase their awareness and understanding of green design and building practices. This event will be held at North Star, but the number to call is 215-428-9655 for details. And August 24th and 25th is the return of the Toyota 24 Hours at Tahoe mountain bike race. Attention all mountain bikers, grab your headlamps and a tall cup of coffee for the ultimate Tahoe challenge. This is an overnight, hardcore mountain bike race. Call 562-3830 for details or to register. We want to thank Josh Susman for being our guest on today's show. That's it for this week. I also want to thank those two great guys from Lakeside Towing that came and took care of my Subaru this morning. And I'll see you all next week on Truckee Talks.